Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and I'm so thrilled today to be talking about the wonderful short film Dimensions of Self, which is Oscar qualified for the upcoming season. I'm joined today by the writer, producer, and actor of the film, Mathew Figueroa. And I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the writing process, because it's about a 15-minute film, and I think there's such unique challenges in building an entire world, building a central character, and telling a story in such a short amount of time. And so as you were writing the script for this and developing the story, what were some of the challenges in trying to tell such a complete and rich and layered story in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, well, time is everything when you have a short film project, because there's so much you want to tell, but then you just like face the time issue, which in this case it was something that I really wanted to like go very experimental with, because I personally feel that short films, the majority of them are like very linear, and they just go from a starting to an ended point on just like a linear amount of time. And here I wanted to like just play with that time, just like go all over, and experiment like how much was that I wanted to express through it. And I at the beginning it was like scary, because it was like, okay, I think we're going a bit too much in this or that, but then with the writing process, it wasn't complicated, but it was a long process getting to the last, like the last scripted screenplay that we had. Because first it was like a completely, not a completely different story, because it covered the same narrative, but yeah, like the time lapse where the story is told, it was completely different. So just it was just three or four different adaptations that we had to make to the script. And by just like rewriting them, it was very fun and inspirational, because each time we saw it and we had the cut with that narrative, it was like, okay, then we probably have to just do it again, or find another, like another way of telling it, because it's not getting there, like verbally, it's not getting there. So it was fun, it was a challenge, like everything, but I mean, that's what I love doing. So for me, it was just like just getting deeper into it, and in the end, just like having the right words, and feeling them with the image, like with the visual and the sound. It was beautiful.
And as you were going through the writing process, in terms of your performance in the central role as well, were you also kind of starting to develop the character for yourself in terms of your work as an actor in the film, and thinking as you were writing the inner dialogue and inner monologue of the character
Right.
about how you might potentially perform it?
Yeah, so this is a lot of personal statements, and it was kind of creating this world where the character is, that is quite very like unclear. Um, it was just like a reflection of the moment that I was having, probably in a different moment or stage in my life, right? So, for example, as I probably saw myself in the future as a successful artist, and as this and this and that, and that environment that I created for this character, which you can see it in his apartment, the neatness and the details, the design, the theater, and everything around, like the black and white. That's it's like a pure aesthetic that he wants like to live in, that I wanted to like live in this like dreamland fantasy future that I wanted. But that was just an environment that's something that you aspire, but even though getting there and being there is, I mean, it's still going to be the same inside of, like inside of yourself. It doesn't matter where you get, it doesn't matter what you achieve. The work is inside yourself, like whatever's outside, it's not going to change much, like that's just the external factor of who you are, of what you're able to create. But really, like how you feel inside, how you really are able to live that environment, that world that you create for yourself is I personally think that it comes from the inside. So it's that.
I love that. And I also wanted to ask about working with Sophia, is it Malamute,
Yeah.
who directed the film? Because I think it's so clear that the writing of the film and producing it, that there were so many details already in the script about the visual elements and how you wanted to tell this story. And so was she someone that you had worked with before or knew, or what were
Oh
the initial
no.
conversations about
Oh, she
how you
was
wanted the film to look?
Yeah, she was someone that I admire her work. I love what she does, and I really, I really had in mind a couple of projects that I wanted to just invite her to be a part of, and just this, like the timing was perfect. Everything was running towards making this happen. So I hit her up, and I mean, in the beginning, this was a completely different story, following the same storyline again, but it was completely different. It was all set the way you see it. But I don't know, it was funny. We met like Sophia and I met on the first day of set, like just there. And it was like that was extremely like valuable for me, because just her having just trusting me, and trusting the whole like pre-production that I've made before, like involving her, because she was like involved in a big project and couldn't get like 100% involved until like the last weeks of like pre-production. And so yeah, that trust and that confidence level of just like reading the script and talking to me a few times through through Zoom, and having a couple of meetings, and just flying over from Argentina to New York and shooting was amazing. And we obviously later we talked more deeply about how we connected. And the truth was that she was able to connect with the story, with what I was telling, with what I really wanted to communicate, and she connected with that. She understood, and she probably reflected her on that story as well. And that's what, as long as I know, that's what made her like really get into working together.
That's so great. And the film itself as well is visually told in black and white in a
Yeah.
way that feels very intentional in how you're using the black and white. It's so clear that the use of light and shadow has been carefully thought through, even down to the colors that we're kind of seeing through black and white, the different shades of gray. And what felt important to you in the reason behind wanting to tell the story that particular way, and what were some of the things that you had to figure out logistically, just in terms of how it was going to look? Did you have any opportunity to kind of do any camera tests, or was it just diving straight in and trusting it?
No, it was, I mean, first it was all like, we shot because it was all in color. So yeah. And this is a funny story, because literally 3 days before going on set, we had Mika Beria, which is a very talented cinematographer, that was flying in from Sweden to New York, but it was still a pandemic, right? So his production company and his agency made a mistake in some of his flights, that he flew into the UK, and then he couldn't fly. As he had flew into the UK, he couldn't fly to America. And literally 3 days before set, we had no cinematographer, we had no DP. So we like, and we had done the work with him and everything around, like he formed the team, the gaffers, and like his whole team was in New York already, and he couldn't fly in. And it was something like virtually impossible to make at that time, because he couldn't direct through Zoom because of the time frames, etc. So we had to get another DP, which is Caitlin Machak, and it was really like, I know that things happen for a reason, but that really happened for a reason, because she, like, again, she came in on set right the day before we started working, and it was as if she knew like everything about the project, as if she knew, like, yeah, we connected so well. Sophia connected so well with her, and it was amazing. So we shot. It was beautifully made in color as well. Visually it was stunning, but again, just like um watching the first cuts and feeling all this put together, all this work put together with the sound, the narrative, and the picture. I Exactly what you said. I felt that the black and white would even like create this like depth, that like it would give it this, it would give the project this like very much profound like frame, where the shades, the light, where this environment, that this moment that we're portraying, I feel I could connect to it 1,000 times with black and white other than with colors. So making the change, because we had everything shot already, we had the material, and changing it to black and white, it was a big deal, because everything on set, the lighting, everything that we did was, to for it to be color. So with the editor, Tito was amazing, and it was a long process of time, and there were actually some scenes that had to be like completely sacrificed and cut off because they were not working in black and white. Like it was too bright, and it made it not just simply not work with the aesthetic and quality line that we wanted to follow. So in the end, it worked perfectly with what we have, and I love it in black and white. Yeah.
Same. I would have had no idea that it was originally filmed to be in
Yeah.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about filming some of the scenes in the apartment, which are so central to it, particularly in terms of the blocking and putting that together in terms of both the performance and kind of placement of character, but also in the dance with the character and the camera and kind of that collaboration, because there's some really beautiful like tracking shots that are just following the central
Right.
character and moving through the space rather than cutting between, which obviously adds a lot of layers of
Right.
complexity and putting it together.
Yeah, so this was something that was planned from the beginning, because as you can see in the story, the first, like, it's I would say it's divided in like two different stages, which is like night and day, right? And which is like the whole and liberation of the character. And for like the first scenes are like still frames, like they feel like very, yeah, very very framed, very still, very rigid into that, just the character moves around, but you don't move around with him, like, you don't follow him. And in the end, the character has this fluidity like around his house and around the theater, and just like moving around, and you follow him. So we created that to give this sense of just like liberation, of just like from first just like looking at him as a third person, and just watching someone go through this moment that you don't know what's going on. And it seems like so far from being there, but at the same time you're just like looking. And then he opens up. It's like he opens up, and he allows you to like come in and feel that sense of liberation, of understanding, of togetherness that he finds in everything. And I feel that the movement of the picture, of the camera, along with the character, it gives you that sense of freedom, of moving around, just, yeah.
Yeah. And in some of those scenes in the apartment, there's a moment where instead of just hearing the one voiceover track, we start hearing a second version of it, which is very akin to the way that voices sometimes move in your head. And it's not always linear.
Right.
It's not always one sound. Where did you come up with the idea of, okay, it's not just going to be one voice at this moment for this amount of period and at this point in the story, it's going to be two voices, and what were some of the elements of the kind of like post-production on that and just the sound design and making sure it all worked, because we can really hear every word still.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot of people can relate to this, and just sometimes hearing different voices in your head, and it can be like, as this character experiences, it's his own voice but in different places, you know, like different places around it. They come from different spots. And you know, like creating this, it was complicated on being able to, you know, I really feel film can get like everywhere, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, in this like first project of mine, be able to put like those feelings or those ideas or those voices even that were inside my head in a picture, you know, like in a visual or audio project. So it was very, very challenging to be able to put them in the right place, you know, like in the right scene, because that would be crucial on how on how the audience like kind of relate to them, you know. So it had to be a moment where it could be like very relatable and not like very unique on like onwards what this character is going through. And I feel when all the voices come in, it drives a conversation, a different type of conversation, a very personal conversation, but so ordinary at the same time, you know, like he's talking to his mother, and it seems that there's conflict right there, but you can't really hear, but he's talking back to himself about the conversation he's having. And he's talking about not being enough and ruining everything and taking this decision making, and probably a moment of addiction or something. It's out of his hands, it's out of his control. So that's when the voices arise in my life, you know, when I feel that way, when I feel that compression onto like whatever I'm going through that involves decision making, or you know, a family or a tough situation. And the sound design for that was, we have Carlos Cortez, which is an amazing sound mixer and designer. And when this was in post-production, because we didn't involve him till like the end of the post-production and creating this design. But I, again, just like watching the final cut, I felt that it needed that connection to we had an amazing sound before, but it needed that. My statement was like, when I first connected with him, it was like, okay, here's what I want to do. I feel that in this moment where this character is, he's alone in his house. It's silent around him. Everything feels like very not dense, but just like he's there, you know, like as if he's in a box alone, and there's not a sound around. And I feel in those moments, it's where probably you hear the most like intense sound contamination, and you feel like, you know, like probably this can be like in here and literally like knock you off. And I wanted to be able to recreate those, like, I don't know if it's like internal body sounds, but I don't know, sometimes it happened to me that I could imagine just like feeling or hearing my blood, you know, like running, or my breathing so intense. And I wanted to be able to create this sound environment where you could like actually sense or feel his body, you know, like his body, what he's like feeling. And I certainly knew that what it sounded like. So after a few meetings with him, and after an amazing design sound system that he created for this to be able to express in that way and to show in that way, we were able to get what we have. And it's like the harder and the you hear it, like the more you're gonna feel it, like that's for sure.
That's amazing. I really love visually the moments where you've utilized the stage, not just in terms of seeing him walk out at the beginning and towards the end, but those shots on the stage where, it's okay, now we're moving the papers around, as there's kind of the intercut of a shredder, or on the stage with all of the other actors and all of the other performers coming in, that feels like a really choreographed dance sequence amongst everybody. And so wanted to ask about the way in which you conceptualized some of those moments and some of the different visual elements and performance aspects on the stage.
Yeah, so every frame or every line has it's funny, and it might not sound so, but they really do like have a concept around, like the film itself, it's like very metaphorical, but each line and each frame, and this one that you're mentioning, is so important because it might be a bit confusing of where is he, and who are all these people. And it's just he lives in I believe we experience this life in three dimensions, like the outside, which is like the external, like world, like life outside, what we see, what we have, who we have around. And then our inside, like who we are as a person, like who we think we are, like how we perform, how we just walk through life physically, like in our bodies, like who we see ourselves in our mirror, and it's like, okay, that's who I am. And then the I don't like to call it unconscious or conscious, but I just call it like the depths, what's really the core, what's really inside of that, inside of you. And this character, this black room where he's in, where sometimes he's alone and sometimes he's surrounded with people, it's just like how sometimes he can be around so many different versions of himself, and sometimes he's completely alone. But that loneliness, when we see him alone, just like sitting there, standing there, he's still surrounded by all these different, like entities, or all these different personalities of him. But it's just the way he feels. When he feels with all these people around, with all these different versions of himself around, every version of himself conforms this different personality, like some form a woman, some form a man, which is a masculine and feminine, some form like this, I don't know, this weird style or craziness, just like openness in, I don't know, the hair, what he's wearing, the height, how he feels physically. It involves so much of how he develops himself as a person, because I personally believe that our stage is outside, like when we step outside our door, it's a stage, and we perform from everyone around us, starting from our family, our co-workers, how we perform professionally, and it's him, like he develops these different personalities, because I feel we all do, like we all develop these different versions of ourselves for whoever we're performing, or for wherever we're going. And when he's there with all of them, in the end, he just finds togetherness with all of them, like, and they're all dancing and they're just moving around freely, and he's just there standing, and he's not like battling around them, he's not, you don't see him like suffering. You just like acknowledge him, that the greatness, that all of that like power as because I personally feel like that's a powerful frame, like all the people just there, that's him, you know, like that forms him as a person, and he finally finds like togetherness and acknowledge that. So
it's wonderful. And lastly, I did want to ask a little bit as well about just the journey of going through the festival circuit and kind of strategizing along the way, because it's such a puzzle of things to figure out once you've made your film that's nowhere near the end of the journey. It's, you know, where do I hope to premiere it? Where potentially
yeah.
might it get in? What might be a festival that feels like the right fit programming wise for this? And so once you had made the film and kind of knew the timeline of, okay, this is when we're going to complete post-production, how did you then step into that stage of festival strategizing and figuring out where you were going to apply to, where you were going to try and get the premiere, and even just, you know, you're still in the midst of showing the film at festivals, and just that fact that it is a very continued journey?
Yeah, yeah, it's my first film. At the beginning, I was very skeptical on just like having it in my hands and being just, okay, now what's next? Where do I go? Who do I go to? And obviously just picturing it in a top film festival or something like that was something that we aspired to. But it's an industry and it works somehow in different ways, and you have to learn how to just like push through. And we basically were like, okay, let's hit our best, you know, like our best scenario, and from that, like whatever happens, then we're gonna scale upwards or downwards or wherever it takes us. So film festivals in the beginning were like kind of our deal, where we really wanted to communicate this project. And then we started holding just like up for them because we felt we could do it in a way like independently, because that would give, and that actually gives the project a whole story behind, you know, just like being able to communicate this, as I personally feel that it's a very different project, and it's a different proposal from I don't know, I don't want to compare it to any other amazing projects that they are there, but it's just something different. It's very unique. It's from me, you know, it's very personal. So I just wanted to take it as far as personal as I could, independently, and to see how I could develop myself potentially in the industry as a producer, you know, as a writer, and yeah, as just having something and being able to put it out there in the best way possible and see where it gets. So it was very, very, very organic, you know, like there was nothing planned. There was nothing really like scheduled or set up for the project. So until now, it has all been like completely organic. So I'm happy.
That's amazing. Well, it's no small feat to even get a short film made. It takes so
I
much to
know.
go into it.
Yeah.
And I'm so, you know, really, really love the experience of watching it. So congratulations on everything that you've achieved
Thank you
so
so
far,
much.
and wishing you
Thank you.
continued success with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mara.